Back to hardball. Well, there's been a flood of dishonesty coming from Republicans as they try to reshape the image of President Obama's record the last 4 years. They want you to think the president's ballooned government spending. Well, that's not true. For 4 years running now, spending has run basically flat as a pancake at the federal level. Nor is it true that he has raised taxes. Let's face it, Bush's tax rates are still in effect, even though Karl Rove will try to convince you otherwise. And what do they want you to think? They want you to think that he didn't order the death of Osama bin Laden, that he's been out there apologizing all over the place for America. Well, it's been a campaign of large falsehoods. And the question is, does it work? Joan Walsh is editor-at-large for Salon. David Corn is Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones and the author of Showdown. Both are MSNBC political analysts. Joan, I have to tell you, every once in a while I come across a fact that just blows me away. Look at a part. Now, this is not the true part. This is the falsehood. Here's the new ad from Karl Rove's group, Crossroads GPS, which says President Obama engaged in massive government spending increases. Let's watch it.
Obama started spending like our credit cards have no limit. We've had stimulus and bailouts. Obama added almost $16,000 in debt for every American. How will my kids pay that off when they can't even find jobs? Now Obama wants more spending and taxes. That won't fix things. I had so many hopes. Cutting taxes and debt and creating jobs. That's the change we need.
Well, Mitt Romney likened Obama's spending to an inferno. Let's watch him.
Rather than putting out that spending fire, he's been feeding it. He has spent more and borrowed more. The time has come for a president, a leader who will lead. I will lead us out of this debt and spending inferno.
Not true. And the only problem with Republicans trying to paint President Obama as a reckless spender is it's not true at all. Market Watch points out that federal spending is rising at the slowest rate. In fact, look at it there since the 1950s. But take a look at that bar chart there. For 4 years, from fiscal year 09 right through to fiscal year 13 we're heading into, no change. It's been about $3.5 trillion right through. You know, Joan, every once in a while I'm amazed because I've heard so much about how government spending's been spiking every year. And you look at the ad that Rove's put out, and you'd be led to believe every year it's ticking upward. It's incredibly flat, government spending, federal spending.
It is. This Market Watch piece has gotten a lot of attention because it does fly in the face of what a lot of people believe, even a lot of Democrats, Chris. And, I've been trying to think about what's the biggest lie they've told so far. I mean, birtherism is vile, but it is really a crackpot fringe. This might be the biggest lie of all. You take
including
utter
Trumpy.
mendacity.
Trump's still pushing it. Trump is still pushing it.
And Joe Arpaio, the crackpot fringe. But this one, you take sheer mendacity and you multiply it by the number of people who believe it. And this, to me, that's the Joan Walsh formula for the biggest lie. This, to me, is the biggest lie. And it's frankly devastating when you look at the numbers. I mean, actual per capita spending per American has dropped under President Obama. It's partly the administration is now pushing this, and Jay Carney practically swore at today's briefing, telling people, don't believe the Republican BS. But they've got to get better at getting this stuff out. That chart is unbelievable.
Well, the phrase big lie is terrible, of course. But in this case, there has been an effective use of relentless, not truth telling. David.
Well, there are so many candidates for the biggest lie, despite Joan's favorite. One was that the stimulus created no new jobs, which Eric Cantor and others were saying. And a good example, I think about how they get away with this and why they get away with it. And we were just watching Mark Halperin's, our colleague's interview with Mitt Romney. And in that interview, Mitt Romney said once again that Barack Obama promised that the stimulus would keep unemployment below 8%. He never made that promise. PolitiFact and others have said that that's a lie. And yet Mitt Romney keeps saying it again and again and again. And I was just wishing for Mark to stop the interview just there and say, wait a second, that's really not true, is it? Can you defend this comment? But as long as Mitt Romney and others can keep saying things like that and feeding an impression that's out there, even if it has no basis, they're going to keep doing it. The fact-checking doesn't stop them.
Well, the word hold, by the way, is dishonest. The number of unemployed in this country spiked up to above double digits the minute the guy got in office that first spring. Right. And he was trying to get it down to 8, and he's got it down to 8.1. And it was Christine Romer, his economics person, who said it was 8. But he is the word hold it as if it was all way down below 8%, and he was keeping it from going up.
It wasn't a promise.
It was unbelievable.
None of this made sense. But there's just one big lie after another.
Okay, here's another one, taxes. You and I, all three of us, have watched Obama lose one fighter after another with the Republican-controlled Congress trying to get rid of Bush tax rates. They get it both ways, Joan. They attack him for having raised the rates from Bush's level when he's lost every one of the fights to try to do it. So they whack him from both sides. They say he tried to raise the taxes. Oh, he did raise them, but he didn't. We've still got Bush's tax policies right now. Our economic fiscal policy is basically the Bush tax rates right now.
Mm-hmm. Right,
well, there's nothing more to say on that.
No.
Well, no, but there is more to say. He cut taxes. He cut taxes in the first two years through the Make Work Pay tax credit, and then he followed up with the payroll taxes cut. So actually, he has cut taxes for most Americans, and he hasn't raised them on any Americans. The only thing they can point to, really, I think, is that tanning tax that Snooki was so upset about in the Affordable Care Act. Like that's the extent of the tax increase.
Okay, I've heard about the tanning tax. Yeah. Let's go to Romney's dishonesty here. Okay, let's go. We moved that already. Let's go to another tack that he's sort of always around the country, around the world, being weak on national defense. And I don't know, here he is. Here's Romney again with that old song that he's always apologizing. Let's watch.
Internationally, President Obama has adopted an appeasement strategy. He believes America's role as leader in the world is a thing of the past. And he apologizes for America. And I will never apologize for the greatest nation in the history of the earth.
Well, the president took on his critics about his national security record during a press briefing last December. Let's listen to the president.
Ask Osama bin Laden and the 22 out of 30 top al-Qaeda leaders who've been taken off the field whether I engage in appeasement or whoever's left out there. Ask them about that.
David, appeasement has a horrible ring to it, of course, and they don't mind using it.
It goes back to the Nazis and appeasing, Hitler. It is an awful word, and there is no basis for this. Ask him for an example of appeasement. Libya. That was an instance where the president pushed the European allies to go further than they were willing to go in order to take on Gaddafi's killing machine that was threatening civilians. The president himself makes a good case on not appeasing al-Qaeda, which is really our biggest threat now. Mitt Romney's out there saying that Russia is our number one geopolitical foe, which is not true. And he's blaming the president for appeasing unknown, unidentified enemies. It's the type of thing that really shouldn't pass any sort of laugh test in polite society. He shouldn't be allowed in the room with positions like that. But because it feeds this notion that Obama's an amateur, that he's not really American, doesn't really care about American and American values, it finds a foothold amongst those people out there who are already skeptical of the president. And it's red meat for those folks. It's kind of sad that Romney has to sink that low and can't have an honest debate over foreign policy and national security differences that may
he doesn't know anything about foreign policy.
Legitimately exist. Yeah, I know.
Joan, it seems to me, and David, Jane, he doesn't know anything about it. You know what? I'm no hawk, as everybody knows it. But, I've been reading a lot about Reagan lately. He spent a lot of time trying to get Gaddafi, and he's been toppled thanks to this president and the people of Libya. Let's not forget the people with our help. Those people got rid of this bad guy. W talked like the macho man about getting the bad guys in the war on terrorism. That was his phrase. And yet, in terms of the war on terrorism, I thought that the sheet that the president just ran through, the bad guys at the top of that list, the 30-some people, he's done pretty good at actually fighting the war on terrorism. So even on their own score sheet, he should be their hero. Barack Obama should be a hero to the hawks on the right wing.
He should be their hero. And, I have to call ourselves and the rest of the media on the carpet here, too, Chris, because we've got to find ways. I don't know if Mark Halperin should have jumped into that interview. I would like to see that, too, David. Maybe that wasn't the time. But certainly in print and in broadcast, every time we report that Mitt Romney once again said Barack Obama apologizes for America, reporters should be required to say, as a matter of fact, MSNBC has found that he has never once apologized for America. There's got to be a way to make this a reporting convention.
Okay. There's a catch-22 there. There's a catch-22, Joni, and we'll never get that interview. Because we'll keep doing that to him. They're not going to listen to him. By the way, we won't get a second interview. We're not going to get a second one. If Mark had done that and laced into him like you and I would love to do it, the goodbye would be permanent from this guy.
Well, that's part of the problem. Well, that is part of the problem here, because if you don't do that, then you're enabling him to use you as a platform to say things that are not true. The other day, he gave a speech in which Romney said if Obama's reelected and Obamacare is fully implemented, half of the economy will be controlled by the government. Again, not true. It's a line he keeps using over and over again. And, unless someone sort of really gets in his face about it, he's not going to stop. And some voters will actually believe that. That's the sad thing. And that's what's unfortunate about it. It's not just cable chatter here. This really matters when it comes to picking a president.
Well, he'll be president of the United States, and his press conferences will have all kinds of participation, all the way from Forbes to Fox. Anyway, they'll give him good interviews. Anyway, thank you, David Corn. Thank you, Joan Walsh.